Hello and welcome to your station of choice, Africa Independent Television, AIT, and the program is People, Politics, and Power. Welcome to yet another edition of this program. I'm Okiri Agbonsuremi. Today on the program, we shall take a clear look at the challenges of insecurity in the Buhari administration as epitomized in the special press statement by former President Olusegun Obasanjo. Using the recent senseless killings by the herdsmen across Nigeria, the former head of state, General Abdulsalami Abubakar, in an address during a one-day forum organized by a group known as the Search for Common Grounds in his farm on October 30, 2016, released some grim statistics about the killings and maiming in clashes between herdsmen and peasant farmers in 4 states of Plateau, Nasarawa, Kaduna, and Benue in just 1 year. In it, the former head of state said for 2016 alone, 2,500 people were killed, 62,000 people displaced, 13.7 billion lost to the clashes. 47% of the internally generated revenue in the affected states was lost. In December 2015, they attacked part of southern Kaduna. The Vicar General of the Catholic Diocese of Kafachan, Reverend Ibrahim Yakubu, said 880 people were killed in 1 day, 53 villages destroyed, 1,422 houses were burnt down, and that is 18 churches and 1 primary school were also touched. These figures, no doubt, have increased between 2016 and 2017, especially with the recent January 1, 2018 senseless killings. There have been also reports that the herdsmen suffer incessant attacks, some of them unreported, from cattle rustlers and farmers, that they had to resort to protecting themselves because of the obvious failure of the security agencies, the police, and the police, to give them the necessary protections. In a bid to profile solutions and end the incessant killings, 2 states, Benue and Taraba, have enacted the anti-open grazing laws. The Taraba state law is being challenged in court by the umbrella body of the herdsmen, Miyetti Allah. The federal government also came up with the cattle colony policy, which, according to the Minister of Agriculture, Audu Ogbe, will be introduced to willing states. The cattle colony policy has so far been receiving divergent views, with states like Ekiti, Benue, Imo, Taraba, and Delta rejecting it. In all of these, what is the cattle colony all about? And what do Nigerians know about it? Will the cattle colony policy end the senseless killings by the herders? We also want to quickly also let you know that the reactions to former President Olusegun Obasanjo's communication, press statement, has been that of frenzy around Nigeria. Like we predicted yesterday on our radio program, our sister radio station, that groups will begin to come out to lash on the pronouncements and begin to take actions that could indeed lead away from these both political parties. Just this afternoon, a group of 30 political parties just finished addressing the press, and a statement from my correspondent, Ijoma Osamo, indicates that the 30 political parties have said they are forming a coalition, and that this coalition is going to issue a statement and give Nigerians the direction to go in the coming days. And just apart from that, we have already a steering committee committee that has been reported by some very dependable social media, the Sahara Reporters and Premium Times, as having some names, so many of them, that you want to believe that several meetings have been holding ahead of the pronouncement of the former president, either linked or separated. Is it possible that they have been holding their own meetings? For instance, we have bodies, like we have a list of a steering committee made up of 29 prominent names in Nigeria. We have a finance committee made up of about 10 of them, also prominent Nigerians. We have an ideology commission by this group made up of about 11 names. We have a political commission made up of another 12 names. And we have contacts and mobilization team cutting across Nigerians, selected from all Nigerians, 18 of them. And even went down to the student youth cells teams with about 10 in this group. The report harmonization has about 8 names, and we have a strategy and marketing team made up of about 14 names. We also have a long list of legal team, 18 of them, and we have the Diaspora Commission, just on and on and on, of this team that believe that both the APC and the PDP should be swept aside. But ironically, if you take a look at this list, and I have just done that, but until we confirm that these individuals are indeed part of this exercise, we probably will not be able to give you their names. But from what I can see, they are made up of Nigerians. Nigerians who have either been in PDP or they are still in APC. And of course, there are people who have been neutral, prominent lawyers who in the human rights and civil society organizations who are also teaming up with these people. But the bottom line is that these people are not from the moon. They are not from the UK. They are not from Ghana, as close as it is. They are all Nigerians. And did I hear you asking what difference will it make? That is exactly what I'm also asking. Are they going to reinvent the wheel? But let's come to the issue on ground so that we begin to take a look at the insecurity. We could also talk about it in the course of the discussion, because my guest who will assist me to interrogate these issues is already in the studio, a university don, a professor of archaeology from the Ahmadu Bello University, Professor Zacharias Gundu. We want to welcome you to the program, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much.
A lot of, amongst the many concerns raised by the notable Nigerians, former President Olusegun Obasanjo cried out in a special address I told you about it, asserted that the issue of insecurity in the current administration, or under the current administration, is becoming unimaginable. This, the APC said, is an unfair statement. While the PDP believes the former president's press statement has vindicated them in their ongoing clamor that things are not going on well. The federal government, through the Minister of Information, Lai Mohammed, described the statement as a distraction. Let's listen to him.
It's not clear if the widely publicized remarks of former President Olusegun Obasanjo came up for discussion as cabinet members gathered for the weekly meeting, barely 24 hours after the former president dropped what has been described as another bombshell. Obasanjo had, in a statement released on Tuesday, done a critical analysis of the Buhari administration and came to the conclusion that the government has performed below expectation. The former president also advised President Buhari not to seek re-election in 2019. Coming out of a marathon Federal Executive Council meeting on Wednesday, Minister of Information Lai Mohammed first appreciated Olusegun Obasanjo for his patriotism and concern about the developments in the country, but said the former president failed to recognize the achievements recorded by the Buhari administration in improving the nation's economy.
We believe that Obasanjo, because of his very busy schedule, not have been fully availed of developments in the government's effort to revamp the economy, which was battered by the consequences of overdependence on a single commodity, as well as unprecedented pillaging of the treasury. Today, most of the indices by which an economy is measured are looking up. Permit me to say, however, that Nigeria would not have exited recession through a mere order, or if this administration had not made use of good Nigerians who could help.
Obasanjo's scorecard disqualifies President Buhari from seeking re-election in 2019. The former president's opinion, however, runs contrary to that of some APC chieftains who have already endorsed President Buhari for a second term in office. One of them is Minister of Communications, Adebayo Shitu, who stormed Wednesday's Federal Executive Council meeting wearing this cap that promotes the Buhari-Osinbajo ticket for 2019 presidential election. But the Information Minister considers all these a distraction.
I will urge Nigerians to have faith in the administration's ability to resolve the crisis and to watch out for concrete measures in this regard.
Lai Mohammed also reassured Nigerians that the federal government is determined to put an end to constant clashes between farmers and herdsmen, even though the problem predates the current democratic dispensation.
However, we believe this issue is a distraction for the president at this time. This is because the president spends every waking hour tackling the enormous challenges facing the nation, most of which were bequeathed to this administration by successive past administrations.
In its defense of the former president's criticisms of the Buhari administration, government believes that Obasanjo's statement was without any ulterior motive, noting that his remarks have been taken in good faith.
Thank you so much for remaining with us. Professor Zachary Gundu is right here. He's Professor of Archaeology at the Ahmadu Bello University. So thank you again for joining me on the program. Just your immediate comments on the Obasanjo's letter, and then tied to the inadequacy in the provision of security around Nigeria.
Well, I think the first thing to say is that the letter is timely. The letter is timely, and this is not to support former President Obasanjo. I think much of the route in this country, including what we have today on our hands, can be put on his table squarely. He was responsible for some of them. But the letter is timely, and I don't think the letter is a distraction. The letter is a masterstroke in the sense that it has tended to unite the opponents of the present administration. And it shows that they don't have good strategists around the administration, because what you try to avoid, if you are in the circumstances they are, is to make sure that no other person unites people who are your enemies. But the letter has united people who are opposed to this government, and the letter is also capable of uniting people who have been opposing each other. Because the truth of the matter is that we have a challenge. We have a security challenge. The life of Nigerians doesn't matter, particularly to this present government. They have slaughtered people, they have slaughtered babies, they have slaughtered pregnant women, they have slaughtered old men, and government is not doing anything. And
they are not seen to be doing anything.
They are not doing anything.
They said they are doing a lot.
No, they are not. They are not. Because the killings are still continuing. And it's not just in Benue. It's not just in Plateau. It's not just in Kogi. It's not just in Nasarawa. It's not just in Taraba. The thing is a national problem now. These people have killed virtually in all geopolitical zones. And they have killed with impunity. And the good government should have come in to make sure that this thing stops and those responsible are properly apprehended and their wealth.
Now, my worry and the worry of many people is that we have this fire brigade approach to solving problems. We had an Obasanjo administration, which many people said, like you also rightly said just now, in agreement with what people, the criticism that people have, that there were a lot that the government ought to have done that they didn't do. And they actually laid some of the foundations. For it was because it was Obasanjo by himself that single-handedly gave us a Yaradua that was not strong enough in head to take over. And then single-handedly brought in Goodluck Jonathan as his deputy. The events of the death of Jonathan led to Jonathan coming on, and he supported him. When it was done and he didn't believe in him again, he rooted for Muhammadu Buhari and said Muhammadu Buhari is the other. He voted, tore his own party card and joined Buhari. Now this same former president is the one asking everybody, we are in a circle of just moving. Nobody say we have a government in place. How can we get this government to work? Let there be a mobilization of people to get the government to work. Where we are planning is that the government should go. So meanwhile, it has 1 year to cease to pretend over what we said is bad. Is Nigeria, is this the right step to be taking?
Well, the big predicament of this country is that we believe in simple answers and not useful answers. Every other single thing we are confronted with, we just bring very simple answers, even when they are not useful. As I told you, what the former president has done may not necessarily be the good step, because he has access to the president, the current president. He's been visiting him, he has been advising him. But that he has come out in public
shows that there was
also means
there's a gap somewhere.
There's a gap somewhere. Probably some of the advices he has given
were not taken.
Or
he no longer had access, a good access to him.
Or no longer had some good access to him. But I like the way he has spoken, because another person could go to sleep. Obasanjo is not the only ex-head of state of this country. There are others. Probably they are sleeping and snoring. They don't care about the country again. But that he has written this letter means he cares about the country. And in terms of strategy, the letter seems to unite every single person who is opposed to this present administration. And the truth of the matter is that this present administration could have done better. You see, the way things went under the PDP, under Jonathan, people were really, really not happy. So there were a lot of expectations. But I know Nigeria is big, so it's like a giant ship. You can't just turn it.
Just stay it
immediately. It will take time. But 2 years is enough for the administration to have made certain significant indications that they are ready to take this country out of the woods. There have been a lot of delays in decision making. There have been a lot of things that really are not sensible. Like you come in immediately, you are talking about bringing grasses from Brazil to give to our cattle here, when you know that there have been grasses produced by Nigerian research institutions that can be used by cattle. That means the fellow who came and started that doesn't even know what is in this country. Suddenly, the fellow still went to the issue of grazing reserves. When he knows that in terms of population, the population of this country, the development, grazing reserves can't fly. Now they are talking about colonies, things that can't fly. Why is it that they are insisting on things that would not fly? For me, it means that people are not doing their homework. They just want to pick on things that are very simple answers and not useful answers.
To complex issues.
Yes.
Now the political side to it is demobilization that is going on, because there was a suggestion along the former president's message that there should be a coalition, that PDP and APC, they have failed, and that there's no way we are going to depend on them for 2019. And it's calling for Nigerians to come together But he put a caveat there that when it becomes partisan and they are doing candidates, he will move away. I wouldn't know how you see that kind of arrangement. Do we really need to get out of PDP and APC, or do we go in there and sanitize it?
Well, let me just say this very quickly. I'm not a politician in the sense of how the other people are. But it's very, very, very difficult going into a political party
to change it
and trying to change it. Particularly if you are talking about PDP and APC. Mind you, some of these people who are in the APC now actually came from the PDP. They came from the mindset of the PDP, and they are doing the exact things that they were doing in the PDP in the APC. So any person who thinks that he can come here into any of these parties and try to change it probably is a joker, because what they know is the language of money. And unless you have the money to beat them, you can't do it. What they know is the language of thuggery. And unless you have sufficient talks, you can't make it. I think what we need to do, and that is for Nigerians who are interested in the future of this country, is to begin now to see whether they can create a new political ground where money will become irrelevant, where the Godfather will become irrelevant.
Is that not where the problem is? Because are they not going to be populated by these same people?
Well,
because within the PDP, there are a lot of disgruntled people.
Yeah.
Within the APC, there is a lot of disgruntled people who are not satisfied with the operations. They are just waiting for you to open the door, and they will merge again. The same people we are talking about.
I agree with you. The same people probably will even flood the third force. But if the people in the vanguard of the third force, and this is where I think Obasanjo would have to do more than what
he has done now.
What he has done now, what he has suggested he would do. Because if you allow a third force to emerge, but still you allow some of these other people to come and take the front seat
without
force,
a clear-cut ideology.
Yes, you are going to have problems.
All right. Let's take a look at some of the issues we highlighted earlier in deeper form. The leadership of the Nigerian Bar Association was in Benue State to visit some of the affected communities and promise to come out with recommendations that can lead to the solutions to the farmers' herdsmen clashes across Nigeria. Let's take that.
The new year usually begins with lots of hope and expectations. But for the people of Logo and Guma communities in Benue State, north-central Nigeria, whatever hopes and expectations for 2018 in a blink of an eye turned into tragedy and hopelessness. Their communities came under a brutal attack by herdsmen while families were fast asleep at night. At dawn, they were faced with a rude awakening that 73 villagers were dead, while several others were badly injured and hanging between life and death. This is not the first time communities in rural Benue have come under herdsmen attack. In 2016, Agatu became a killing field when the sleepy farming town was invaded by killer herdsmen. Several other killings have taken place as nomadic herdsmen and farmers clash over land. The incessant attack of communities have continued to escalate in Adamawa, Taraba, Southern Kaduna, Benue, Ondo, and other states, which have claimed numerous lives and doubling the numbers of internally displaced persons in the country. This ugly development have been described as the most brazen threat to national security and unity, with many blaming the federal government for inaction inspired repeated warnings and criticism. It is against this backdrop that the delegation of the Nigerian Bar Association, led by its president, Abubakar Mahmood, embarked on a fact-finding mission to Benue State.
The broad objective, to come here, commiserate with the people of Benue State and with the government of Benue State and with the victims, to show concerns and to hear from our members what is going on.
We are supposed to live in peace. We are supposed to be accommodating. However, you cannot accommodate people at the expense of your well-being.
The visit included a town hall meeting to ventilate the pains, concerns of the affected communities and proffer possible solutions. Representatives of religious bodies, local government chairmen, civil society organizations, and other interest groups expressed displeasure over the situation. They pointed out the imminent economic effect of the attacks and how the old country will suffer if it is unchecked.
All the narratives about this challenge will never achieve any result until we pick it from these two perspectives. It's not a religion. Jonathan was a Christian. Jonathan is a Christian. So for us, it's not about poverty. It's about economic and political dimensions. We also consider even the mode of attack.
Other stakeholders at the town hall meeting questioned the federal government's silence over the situation. They urged the federal government to activate all constitutional measures to urgently douse the mounting tension between the herdsmen and farmers in the affected communities across the country.
Well, as we speak and as this program is running, reports reaching us from the presidential villa indicates that the president is meeting with service chiefs and the heads of security agencies in Nigeria. Of course, not a coincidence, as issues of security have become one that is debated. I believe it's a routine one, and our State House correspondent said the president is meeting with the heads of security agencies and the service chiefs in the presidential villa as we speak in Abuja. Now, my guest is still here, Professor Zacharis Gundu. Thank you for remaining with us. And let's take a look at the background to this herdsmen clash. Some persons have said it's as old, and that we have seen herdsmen with us for a very long time with their bows and arrow. At what point did we get violent in our activities? Is it as a result of the space that is shrinking? Is it as a result of the movement? Because if you are flying into Nigeria, you see the Sahara Desert really coming in and hitting deep, and they are coming down south. Where did we get into this stage we are now?
Actually, this thing has a long history. It has a long history, but the current crisis is foregrounded on population growth. It is also foregrounded on environmental conditions, particularly in the northern latitudes. And then it is foregrounded on political considerations, especially by Fulani leaders. I want to take them one by one.
Yes.
During the First Republic, our population was not as much. So it was possible for herdsmen to come in, and of course they were not violent, they were not armed.
Because the lands were available,
yes,
and they could go to areas that are not.
Yes, they could go to areas that no person was farming. So no person was really bothered about what was happening. But over time, our population has increased.
And the occupation has become enlarged.
Yes, and then development has taken over in many parts of the country. So the arable land per citizen, particularly the adult citizen,
has gone down.
Is shrinking. So because it is shrinking, no person would want a situation in which you can just come in without invitation and then begin to graze the way these people are grazing. That is point number one. Point number two is that in the northern latitudes, you have a lot of desert encroachment.
Yes.
The desert is actually coming down.
It's coming
down. We have to be careful, because if we don't check it, this pressure would continue.
But so you can imagine what is going to happen in another 50 years.
Yes, or
yeah,
even 100 years.
Yes, in 100 years.
If we are strategic, we should be thinking about the long term. So as the desert encroaches, as it expands, the people in the northern latitudes
will be moving down.
Would be moving down. That is expected. They will be moving down. And they have been moving down.
And they just oppose this with the increase in population.
Yes. So they have been moving down. Then, of course, you add to the fact of the mobilization by the Fulani of the whole world, in this case, the Fulani of West Africa. I have said this before. The Fulanis actually have their origin in Guinea, in Futajalo. That is where they have their origin. So it is from there they expanded to other parts of West Africa. And their expansion into Nigeria was a very successful expansion. It was a successful expansion because it was an expansion that was made possible by the jihad of Usman.
The instrument of force.
Yes, the instrument of force. So when they expanded into Nigeria, they have been emboldened. And mind you, the jihad had a very, very primary position during the colonial period. The white men privileged the leaders of the caliphate over and above every single Nigerian group, especially in the north. And because they privileged them, they took together with them some of the privileges they had under the pre-colonial period into the colonial period. So what we see today is the Fulanis trying to take the privileges they had under the colonial period into independent Nigeria. And we ought to know that independent Nigeria is not colonial Nigeria. Independent Nigeria is not pre-colonial Nigeria. Independent Nigeria is not a feudal society.
It ought to be governed by the rule of law.
Yes. So you cannot just come in with the privileges you had in the past and insist on those privileges in this particular time. And a lot of people don't also know, and they don't ask the questions. All these things we are talking about, ethnicity, tribalism today, the Fulanis actually started it in this country. Go back to read the history of the Sokoto Caliphate, and you will discover that of all the people who had flags to represent the jihad in the different parts of the north, not up to 3 of them were non-Fulanis. Predominantly, more than 95% of them were Fulani people.
Now let's come. I want us to. There's an issue that you raised about you distinguished them. You distinctly placed them: the pre-colonial,
yes,
the colonial, and the independent Nigeria.
Yes.
At the point of the pre-colonial masters, there was no Nigeria.
Yes.
Then by 1914, we had an amalgamation, yes, of the north and the south,
yes,
where the Fulanis that you talk about now,
yes,
were already grounded in this land.
Yes.
So as at the time we got independence, the Fulani we are talking about that came from Guinea had the right of citizenship in Nigeria.
Yes.
Now, where did we miss the point?
Well, we missed the point because we allowed the Fulanis of the whole world to traverse West Africa without reference to our boundaries, because today ranking Fulani people will tell you that they don't respect boundaries. They don't respect boundaries. So as far as they are concerned, they have taken Nigeria as a preferred home now, because in Guinea, they cannot do what they are doing in this country in Guinea. They can't do it. So their ranking chiefs and their leaders are inviting the Fulanis of the whole world to come into Nigeria.
Is this accentuated, promoted by the ECOWAS free movement?
No.
Because we also have a free movement that is tied to commerce of goods and services.
No, the spirit of the ECOWAS protocols of free movement is wrongly interpreted by many Nigerians. Even when, as a human being, you want to move to another West African country, there is some level of screening.
Identification, yes.
Yes, you have to identify yourself. And if you have a health problem, they will probably not allow you to go there. If you are a criminal, they will probably not allow you. Not to talk about cattle. The thing doesn't the preference given on cattle that you can move from one part of West Africa to another using the ECOWAS is wrong, because movement of cattle
it's a commercial movement. Yeah.
Yes, it's a commercial movement, but it also has implication for health, public health, because there are diseases that move from animals to human beings. They are zoonotic diseases. And any medical person who is serious will tell you that the strains of tuberculosis we are having in this country are strains that have been caused by this type of movement. There are strains that don't recognize even some of the drugs which are being used. So how would the country just open up their borders to people who are carrying animals that are obviously sick?
Now, I will remain where in your analysis, your analogy. Let's go back to the middle point. As at the independence, when we had the Bini man, the Yoruba man, the Igbo man, the Fulanis we are talking about, as at independence, as at the period of independence, when all of us became Nigerians, there were no ceilings as to the identity. Up till now, as we speak now, we do not have pure identities for Nigerians. You see people who come from Togo,
yeah,
and they are Adebayo,
yeah,
and they come to live in Nigeria for a long time.
Yeah.
They can take your identity, go to the passport office, and get a passport.
Yeah.
We also have the same. We have about 200, if not more than 250, different routes, illegal routes,
yeah,
across the borders, the length and breadth. Is it a failure of the leadership right from the beginning to crave for identity?
Yeah,
that is a problem.
It's a failure. If you have Nigeria, and Nigeria is people call it an artificial creation, and you can't argue with that. But even if we are an artificial creation, our government would have done better if they attempted to integrate us more. There's no integration. In the past, maybe in the First Republic, for example, there was some form of integration. If you went to school, people went to school in different parts of the country, and they were studying with each other, they were knowing each other. But this thing has been destroyed now. Even the universities that were centers of integration, this has been destroyed, because even the federal universities, the localities are capturing them as their own institutions. And they are giving the impression that if you are in a federal university that is not in your locality, you cannot amount to anything in that place. So I think government has failed in the sense that it has not moved fast enough to create a nation, a sense of belonging for every Nigerian, where we will be proud to be Nigerians first.
Before you are identified with
yes,
your own locality.
Before your own locality.
I think it's even more instructive when you also look at the Fulanis themselves. There's also a complaint. There are complaints from amongst them that even the nation state has not provided for them the way they should, and we cannot ignore that. We cannot ignore the fact that these people we are talking about are Nigerians, and that they have a right to also practice their... I'm coming, sir. We cannot discount the fact that they are Nigerians and that the government may also... I think we should actually even go to the leadership of the apex body of the herdsmen in Nigeria, the Mieti Allah, which has said that in reaction to the issues of the anti-open grazing prohibition laws that are in some states, that they seem to have preferred the cattle colony policy of the federal government as a means to ending the frequent clashes and killings. We take what they have got to say. Let us listen to them, and then we'll come back to analyze the challenges which they have.
All communities have criminals within them. We also have our share of criminals that are creating problems to our members. If you look at the spate of cattle rustling, we lost about 2 million cows as a result of rustling. Who are the owners of the cows? They are the pastoralists. So we are at the receiving end of this rustling. So, and blaming games will not do anybody any good. We as leaders, if problems happen, we have to persevere, have patience, come sit on the table, see what we can do to solve the problem. You see, this farmer pastoral on the part of government, you have the poor management of crisis, and so on and on and on and on. So, to solve these problems, first of all, we have to create understanding. We have to forget about how politicians are using our lives to play politics. Today, the pastoralist has become a victim of circumstances. We are also victims of this crisis. We are victims. We don't want to go back to be extending wars or to adding salt to the injuries that we have. But both sides were all victims. There is no side that has not lost life. There is no side that have not lost properties. We both lost lives and properties in Nigeria. And we are the most affected. You know why? Because our members are spread all over the country. So, as a solution, or the solution of this crisis depended on government. Long as people will be perpetrating crimes and you let them go scot-free, you are encouraging some others to also come and perpetrate the same crime. When a crime happens, investigate, bring the perpetrators to book, punish them. Let the others see the punishment due to the perpetrators. This will stop them from committing crimes. But when this crisis happens, government will establish committee. They will investigate. They will present either white paper or report, and that will be the end of it. No implementation. Let's look around. Let's identify these reports that are laying in most of the government agencies. Let's identify them. Let's put them together. There is nothing new that is going to be said about this crisis that have not been said before. We are all repeating, always addressing the effects, not minding about the root causes. Let's harmonize these reports. Let's analyze them with the view of getting them implemented. Assign tasks to the various, to the third tiers of government. Sort out those things that the local governments can do in solving this problem. Give them their tasks to do. Sort out those things that the state governments can do. Let them be seen to be doing their duties. Sort out those things that the federal government and the security agencies can do. Give it to them to start to be doing their duties as responsible security agencies. So this takes us to the question of cattle colony that is coming in to be introduced by the Federal Ministry of Agriculture. Well, we don't know what it involves. It's something new that is coming up. We will have nothing to say on it, but we fear a situation where windows will be open for mischief makers to begin to create problem to government.
If you ask me to summarize what the leadership of the Miyetti Allah just said now, I will tell you it is a collapse of the system. A collapse of the system that everybody understands that the effects. He has also correctly said that there are losses on all everywhere. And when you injure somebody, somebody does something bad, and you do not punish the person, you give room for a revenge. That was what was indirectly saying. A collapse of government control of the system over the years, like my professor said, something should have been done. But let's come to the issue of the cattle colony. Do you understand what they mean? The Miyetti Allah man said they don't understand it yet. I got a guest yesterday, two guests yesterday, who attempted to tell me that if we define it by, say, it is cattle industrial zone for the processing of animals, we have a grazing reserve. They said they are proposing 774 of them in each of the local government, lands provided, and it's going to be business strictly. So if you are a cattle owner, whether you are an Igbo man leading the cattle or a Fulani, you key yourself into it. What's your understanding of this cattle colony? I don't know if you have gotten an insight into it.
No, I haven't gotten an insight into it as such, but I know that in the world, in the whole world, there's only one template of cattle colonies in the whole world. That is in Pakistan. And the situation in Pakistan is far, far different from the situation in Nigeria. I think government is just playing with words. And the Minister of Agriculture, I'm so sorry to say this, sometimes I pity him, because he used to be somebody who was clear-headed. And I really don't know why he is not being clear-headed on this issue. The issue of cattle colonies doesn't make sense. If you have to improve livestock production in Nigeria, the only way to go is ranching. Let me just give you an example.
What's the difference between ranching and cattle?
I'm coming. Yeah. But let me just give you this example. You know the local chicken?
Yes.
No other person would want eggs for this country, would want poultry products for this country, and encourage people to
leave their birds everywhere.
Yes, to keep their birds as free-range birds.
Like we have in our villages.
Yes, like we have in our villages. Yes. They will not give us enough eggs for the people that need eggs in the cities and even in the rural areas. They will also not give us enough meat for people who want to eat these birds. So what you do is to transit from this free range
to a poultry system to
some poultry system where you keep your birds, you feed them properly, and you take care of them. They lay eggs for you for layers, and then for broilers, you feed them so that you can...
A properly organized poultry farm.
Yes. So if we can transit, and we have transisted from this type of poultry, free-range, free-moving birds to poultry farms, if we can do that, I'm at a loss how any thinking Nigerian would not admire the issue of ranches. In ranches, you buy land. When you buy land, you develop the land, you get grasses, you get water, you get health facilities, you keep your animals on the ranches.
In the ranch.
Yes. When you do that, it will take you a shorter time to feed a cow to some table size, to feed a cow that will give you milk, and it will be quality milk. It will not be this infested sort of milk we take. It will not be this type of poor quality meat we have because people are taking their cattle from one part of the country to another part by foot. In fact, if we had people who were conscious of animal rights, they will even take them up. On what basis do you take an animal from Sokoto, you are trekking with it to Port Harcourt, and by the time the animal gets there, the meat is just rubbish? So the point to make is simply that these people, what they want, really Audugbe is helping them to get what they want. A lot of people who are at the receiving end of the Fulani herdsmen believe that it is their land they want. Why would they have to ask for land in every local government area of this country? Why? When you know that if you take only Sambisa forest,
no, it's like
it can contain all the cows, all the cattle in this country.
If you have a ranching system and you have 774 cattle ranch in Nigeria, let us be comfortable with the word ranch.
Yes.
That you have farmers, businessmen who can get lands in local government, and we have as many as 774. I'm just exaggerating now. Is there anything wrong with that?
No, there's something wrong with that. Why would, if a local government says, I don't have land for ranch, if a local government says, look, me, I want to
we are not specializing
just
in
fruits.
Yeah.
I want to do just rice. I want to do just this. Why would you force them to give you land to graze your cattle?
Of course,
why would you do that?
Of course, the government has not said it's for. They said they are selling the idea to states that are willing to adopt it.
Why are they selling the idea to states? This is an idea they should have been sold. They should have been selling to the Fulani herdsmen. They are rich enough. The people who own the cattle are rich enough to do ranching. So they should discuss with them. And the impression the Fulanis are getting that, you know, they have been shortchanged in this country, I really don't. Maybe they think that every person has mud in the head. These are people, you must have heard of nomadic education.
Yeah.
Do you know how many billions they sank into nomadic education without seeing anything? They refused to go to the schools because the whole idea was not properly set up.
We still have a decommission where that gets money from the budget.
What do they do with it? What do they do with it? So a group is being over-pampered by government. People who are staying on their farms don't have good schools. They don't have good clinics. They don't have water to drink. And then we are pampering a group, and then they are murdering us.
Of course, their interest should be taken care of. I don't think you want to believe
What is their interest?
They are Nigerians. If they have a trade.
But look,
If
you are forgetting one point. You are forgetting one point. A good number of people who graze in this country with their cattle are not Nigerians. They come from outside. You just need to go to Sokoto, you need to go to Maduguri, you need to go to...
They cross the border.
They just cross the border at will. So we are not... There's even no guarantee that when you establish these colonies or whatever, the people who will be on them will be Nigerians. But if you insist on a structured way of having ranches, you know somebody will have to acquire land. So there will be a way to insist that if you acquire the land, it must be used by people who have cows and who are Nigerians. But when you just talk of cattle colony, you are inviting everybody to come into this country because he's keeping cows, even if they are in Ghana or some other West African country.
Of course, there should be conditions. We just need to wrap up the matter. I have insisted on my own that everybody who is identified as a Nigerian the interest should be catered for, including the Fulani herdsmen. Unfortunately, and that is where I want to take your last point, how do we identify ourselves? Because that is the key summation of your report. That anybody, how do we identify ourselves?
Well, that's the failure of government again. Because I'm telling you, if you go to some of these border areas, it's possible for somebody to walk into this country from Chad, from Niger, or from...
Speak Hausa or Fulani and just walk into it.
He stays in the city. He stays in the city in the north for just 5 years, and he becomes more Nigerian than me. It's possible. So if we really want this country to be where we want it to be, we must give Nigerians an opportunity to integrate with each other.
And be identified.
Yes, so that we can build a nation all of us will be proud of.
Professor Zachary Gundu is a professor of archaeology at the Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, and he has joined me to interrogate a lot of issues pertaining to security in Nigeria against the backdrop of the events around Nigeria and lately the statement issued by former President Olusegun Obasanjo that the crop of politicians gathered under the umbrella of the PDP and who are also holding the brooms of the APC, that they have all failed and that there's a need for a convening of a new national consensus so that we can address all this issue. That is the program today. People, Politics, and Power will return in another 24 hours, and when we do, we have another issue on ground. But I must first of all thank Professor for joining me on the program.
Thank you so much
for joining me on the program.
I appreciate it.
And that is it. I am Okiri Agbonsuremi. Let's do it again tomorrow when we come back on the program. Thanks for staying with us.